Olivia Reed's hands trembled as she packed a small duffel bag, the bruises on her wrists still fresh from Thomas's grip earlier that evening. The mansion was quiet now, her husband's snores echoing down the hallway from the master bedroom. 3 years of marriage to Thomas Reed, heir to a shipping empire, had slowly eroded the vibrant woman she once was. Just the essentials, she whispered to herself, slipping her passport, a photograph of her late parents in the small jewelry box, containing her grandmother's necklace, into the bag. The diamond earrings Thomas had given her stayed on the vanity. She wanted nothing that would remind her of him. The digital clock on her nightstand read 2:17 a.m. Thomas had taken his usual sleeping pills after their disagreement about the charity gala she'd attended without his permission. Its accusations still rang in her ears. Who did she talk to? Why was she smiling at the bartender? Why couldn't she follow simple instructions? Olivia zipped the bag closed and slipped into a dark sweater and jeans, clothes she'd hidden in the back of her closet, purchased secretly during grocery trips. Thomas preferred her in designer dresses that showcased her as his possession. Tonight would be the last time she lived by his rules. She crept down the grand staircase, avoiding the third step that always creaked. Thomas's security system was sophisticated, but she'd memorized the code months ago, waiting for the courage to leave. Her fingers danced across the keypad by the door, and the soft beep signaled her temporary freedom. Goodbye, she breathed. Not looking back at the magnificent prison that had been her home, the night air felt cool on her face as she hurried down the long driveway, past manicured gardens and the fountain Thomas had imported from Italy. The wrought iron gates at the entrance would normally be locked, but Olivia had befriended the night guard, Hector, over the years with small kindnesses. Ms. Reed. Hector's voice was concerned as she approached. Everything okay? I'm just going for a drive, Hector. Couldn't sleep, she lied, clutching her bag tighter. His eyes lingered on her face, noting the faint bruise near her temple that her hair didn't quite cover. After a moment's hesitation, he nodded and opened the small side gate. There, ma'am. Thank you, she whispered, knowing he understood more than he let on. Olivia walked quickly down the road, away from the Reed estate, until she reached the bus stop half a mile away. The last bus to downtown Portland would arrive in 7 minutes, according to the schedule. From there, she'd need to disappear. As she waited, Olivia checked her wallet. $300 in cash, withdrawn in small amounts over weeks, and a credit card Thomas didn't monitor closely. It wouldn't last long, but it was something. The bus's headlights appeared in the distance, and Olivia took a deep breath. Thomas would wake in 5 hours. By then, she needed to be far away. He'd-come-looking men like Thomas Reed didn't lose what they considered their property. His connections reached throughout the city. Police officers who enjoyed his generous donations, business partners who wouldn't dare cross him private, investigators on retainer. The bus pulled up with a hydraulic hiss. The driver barely glanced at her as she paid her fare. Olivia chose a seat near the back, beside an elderly woman who smiled kindly at her. As the bus pulled away, Olivia watched the streetlights blur through tears she refused to shed. She was alone, afraid, and nearly broke, but for the first time in 3 years, she was free. Asterisk, the small cafe on the outskirts of Riverdale was exactly what Olivia needed, nondescript, cash-only, and far enough from Portland that Thomas's reach might not extend here. After 3 days of bus rides and cheap motels, her funds were dwindling rapidly. The bruises on her arms had faded to a sickly yellow, but the fear remained sharp as ever. More coffee, hun? The waitress Betty, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, held up the pot. Please, Olivia nodded, pulling her sleeves down instinctively. And is your Wi-Fi password still the same? Betty smiled. Yep, Bispeentown, all lowercase, looking for work. Something like that, Olivia murmured, opening her laptop. She needed to find a shelter, somewhere Thomas wouldn't think to look. His text messages had become increasingly frantic, then threatening. She ditched her phone after the first day, but not before seeing his promise to bring her home. Whatever it takes. The bell above the door chimed, and Olivia instinctively ducked her head. A tall man in a charcoal suit entered, his presence immediately filling the modest space. He carried a leather briefcase and moved with the easy confidence of someone accustomed to command. "Julian Blake? Haven't seen you in weeks," Betty called out. "Your usual? You know me too well?" The man smiled, revealing laugh lines around his eyes.
Hey.
He took a seat at the counter, several stools away from Olivia. Betty poured him coffee and leaned in conspiratorially. "How's that big case going? The one with the pharmaceutical company? Saw something about it on the news?" "Settled yesterday," Julian replied. "The company will be paying for their negligence for years to come." Couldn't help but glance up. She'd seen that case mentioned in the papers, a major corporation being held accountable for covering up dangerous side effects. The lawyer who won had secured millions for the victims. As if sensing her attention, Julian turned. Their eyes met briefly before Olivia looked away, focusing intently on her laptop screen. She could feel his gaze lingering on her. The next moment brought disaster. Olivia's trembling hands knocked over her coffee mug, sending the hot liquid cascading onto her keyboard. She gasped, jumping up as coffee dripped onto her jeans. "Oh dear," Betty hurried over with a rag. "Let me help you with that." "My laptop," Olivia whispered, watching as the screen flickered and went dark. It contained her research, shelter locations, job listings, her lifeline. "Rice," Julian spoke suddenly, appearing beside them. "Do you have a container of rice, Betty? It might save the computer." Before Olivia could protest, he was gently taking the laptop, carefully turning it upside down to drain the liquid. "I've rescued a few devices this way. I'm Julian, by the way." "Olivia," she replied hesitantly, watching his hands work with practiced efficiency. Betty returned with a container of rice, and Julian carefully placed the laptop inside. "Leave it for 24 hours. No guarantees, but it's worth trying." "Thank you," Olivia said, keenly aware that she had no backup plan if the computer couldn't be saved. Julian studied her face for a moment. "You're not from around here?" It wasn't a question. Olivia stiffened. "Just passing through." Something in her expression must have revealed more than she intended. Julian's eyes softened, noting her worn clothes, the way she scanned the door each time it opened, the absence of a wedding ring, but the pale line where one had recently been. "I have an office nearby," he said casually, "with computers. You're welcome to use one if you need to finish whatever you were working on." Olivia hesitated. Every instinct honed by years with Thomas screamed caution. "I understand your hesitation." Julian added quietly, "But sometimes we need to trust someone." My card. He placed it on the table. "My office is 2 blocks down. Betty can vouch for me. I've been coming here for years." Betty nodded. "Julian's good people. Helped my nephew with a landlord problem last year. Wouldn't take a dime." Julian smiled at the waitress, then turned back to Olivia. "Wait. No pressure. The offer stands either way." As he returned to his seat, Olivia stared at the business card. Julian Blake, attorney at law, Blake and Associates. Beneath it, a handwritten note. "Office open until 6 p.m. Ask for Donna at reception." For the first time in days, Olivia felt something unexpected. A tiny flicker of hope. Asterisk the guest house behind Julian Blake's Victorian home was more luxurious than any hotel Olivia could have afforded. Situated on his wooded property 20 minutes from his downtown office, it offered both comfort and the seclusion she desperately needed. A week had passed since their chance meeting at the cafe, and against all her better judgment, she had accepted his help. "Remember, the security system is always on," Julian explained, demonstrating the control panel. "The code is 8472. One comes onto the property without my knowledge." Olivia nodded, still uncomfortable with accepting such generosity. "I can't stay long. Once I get my first paycheck from the bookstore," Olivia Julian interrupted gently. "There's no timeline. Here. Donna is thrilled to have you helping at the office, and you clearly know your way around legal documents better than most paralegals." The part-time filing job at Julian's law firm had been unexpected after she'd finally visited his office that first day. His office manager, Donna, had commented on how efficiently Olivia organized the case materials she'd been researching. Asterisk. "My husband insisted I handle all his business correspondence," Olivia explained, then immediately regretted mentioning Thomas. Julian's expression remained neutral. Well, your skills are valuable. Stay as long as you need. Now, in the guest house kitchen, Julian placed a folder on the counter. I've been doing some research. There are options for people in your situation. Olivia's fingers tightened around her teacup. She hadn't told him everything, but Julian was perceptive. The flinching when doors closed too loudly, her reluctance to discuss her past, the nightmares that occasionally woke her screaming, they painted a picture she couldn't hide. I don't want to involve the authorities, she said quietly. I understand. But we should discuss restraining orders eventually. Julian didn't push further. For now, focus on healing. My friend Dr. Patricia Winters specializes in trauma recovery. She's agreed to meet with you, completely confidentially. The kindness in his eyes made Olivia look away. Kindness had been Thomas's mask too in the beginning. Why are you helping me? She finally asked. You don't even know me. Julian was silent. For a moment, my sister was in a similar situation. She didn't make it out. His voice held old pain. I couldn't help her then, but I can help you now. The simple honesty of his answer broke something open inside Olivia. For the first time since her escape, she cried deep, racking sobs that Julian witnessed without trying to stop or comfort her, giving her the space to release years of suppressed emotion. Later that evening, after Julian had returned to the main house, Olivia sat on the patio watching fireflies dance in the garden. Her laptop, miraculously recovered thanks to Julian's rice trick, pinged with a news alert. The headline made her blood freeze. Shipping magnate Thomas Reed offers $50,000 reward for information on missing wife. The accompanying photo showed Thomas, looking appropriately concerned, standing on the steps of their Portland mansion. My wife may be confused or in danger, the article quoted him. She's been struggling with emotional issues. Just want her home safely. Olivia's hand shook as she read his perfectly crafted lies. Emotional issues. The phrase he'd used whenever she'd tried to confide in friends about his behavior, assuring they'd dismiss her as unstable. Her phone, a prepaid one Julian had purchased, buzzed with a text. News alert. Don't panic. We'll handle this. Across the garden, she could see the lights of the main house, where Julian was undoubtedly already strategizing. The distance between buildings suddenly felt both reassuring and terrifying. In Portland, Thomas would be working his connections, describing his troubled wife, 2 sympathetic police officers. How long before someone recognized her? The bookstore where she now worked part-time was public. Julian's law firm handled high-profile cases. It would only take one person to make the connection. Olivia closed her laptop, trying to calm her racing heart. For a brief moment, she'd felt safe, almost normal. Now the shadows were closing in again. What she didn't see was the black sedan parked half a mile down the road, where a man with a telephoto lens carefully documented the Blake property, focusing particularly on the lit windows of the guest house. The courthouse buzzed with whispered conversations as Olivia entered through the side door, Julian's steady hand at her elbow. 6 weeks had passed since she'd spotted the surveillance car. Today would determine whether her newfound freedom would last, or if Thomas would drag her back into his world of controlled smiles and closed doors. Remember, Julian murmured, you're not alone anymore. Olivia nodded. Her navy suit borrowed from Donna, feeling like armor. Dr. Winters had helped her prepare for this moment, teaching her grounding techniques for when panic threatened to overwhelm her. Still, nothing could fully prepare her for facing Thomas again. He was already seated at the respondent's table, impeccably dressed in a suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. When their eyes met, he offered that familiar smile, charming, concerned, and utterly false. All rise, the bailiff called as Judge Eleanor. Washington entered. The emergency hearing for the restraining order had been expedited after Thomas's private investigator had confronted Olivia outside the bookstore, attempting to force her into his car. The incident, captured on the store's security cameras, had finally convinced Olivia to file charges. We're here regarding petition number 47,329, Reed versus Reed, Judge Washington stated. I understand Mr. Reed is contesting the temporary restraining order and requesting his wife return to their marital home. Thomas's attorney, Harrison Wells, rose smoothly. Your Honor, This entire situation stems from a misunderstanding. Mrs. Reed has been under psychiatric care for delusional episodes. My client has only her best interests at heart. Objection, Julian interrupted. Counsel is attempting to introduce unsubstantiated medical claims. We have documentation from Dr. Patricia Winters, a licensed psychiatrist, confirming Mrs. Reed shows no signs of delusional behavior, but does exhibit clear symptoms of abuse-related trauma. The judge nodded. Sustained. Mr. Wells, confine your statements to verifiable facts. Wells adjusted his approach. Mrs. Reed abandoned the marital home without explanation. Taking valuable property, my wedding ring and my grandmother's necklace, Olivia whispered to Julian, and has been hiding, refusing all contact. Mr. Reed has been sick with worry. Julian rose. Your Honor, we'd like to present evidence demonstrating why Mrs. Reed felt compelled to leave secretly, including medical records documenting injuries. Consistent with physical abuse, testimony from household staff, and threatening messages Mr. Reed sent after her departure, Thomas's composed facade cracked slightly. He leaned forward, whispering urgently to his attorney. Additionally, Julian continued, we have footage from last week showing Mr. Reed's hired investigator attempting to abduct Mrs. Reed outside her workplace. The judge reviewed the evidence folders, her expression growing increasingly grave. Mr. Wells, did your client authorize this investigator's actions? Before Wells could answer, Thomas stood. This is ridiculous. My wife is confused. That man was simply trying to bring her home where she belongs. She's always been emotionally unstable, Mr. Reed. You will be seated. Judge Washington ordered sharply. Olivia flinched at Thomas's words, the familiar tactics threatening to pull her back into self-doubt. Julian's hand found hers under the table, a gentle squeeze reminding her of reality. Your Honor, Olivia spoke, her voice initially soft, but growing stronger. For 3 years I've lived in fear. The night I left, Thomas had thrown me against a wall because I spoke to a waiter at a charity event. She pulled back her sleeve, revealing a pale scar near her wrist. This is from last Christmas, when I bought the wrong brand of scotch for his business associates. Thomas's face darkened. She's lying. Olivia, stop this nonsense and come home. You know what happens when you embarrass me. The threat, spoken so casually in open court, brought stunned silence. Did you just threaten your wife in my courtroom? Mr. Reed? Judge Washington asked. Incred? Why? Wells attempted damage control? Your Honor, my client is understandably emotional. I've heard enough, the judge interrupted. The temporary restraining order is extended for 1 year. Mr. Reed is to remain at least 500 feet from Mrs. Reed, her residence, and her workplace. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the district attorney's office for possible criminal charges. Thomas stood abruptly. You can't do this. You know who I am? I'll have your job for this. Bailiff, the judge called calmly. Please escort Mr. Reed from my courtroom. As Thomas was led away, still shouting threats, Olivia felt a weight lifting. For the first time, someone in authority had seen through his facade. Justice might actually be possible. Outside the courthouse, rain fell gently as Julian opened an umbrella over them both. It's not over, Olivia said quietly. I'll find another way to get to me. Julian nodded solemnly. Probably. Today. You won. And tomorrow, we'll be ready for whatever comes next. As they walked toward Julian's car, Olivia stood a little straighter. The fear remained, but something else was growing stronger. Courage. Asterisk. Autumn painted Riverdale in shades of amber and gold as Olivia walked through the park, breathing in the crisp morning air. 10 months had passed since the courthouse confrontation. Thomas had violated the restraining order twice, once sending flowers with a card reading, I forgive you, come home to Julian's office, and later appearing outside the bookstore requiring police intervention. Each violation strengthened the case against him, and with Julian's guidance, Olivia had finally filed for divorce. Here you are, called a familiar voice. Donna approached along the leaf-strewn path carrying 2 coffee cups. Thought you might need this before the meeting? Olivia accepted the coffee gratefully. Is it terrible that I'm more nervous about this interview than I was about testifying against Thomas? Not at all, Donna replied. Starting your own business is scarier than facing down demons sometimes. But this grant could make all the difference. The Women's Shelter Project had begun as Olivia's therapy assignment. Dr. Winters had suggested channeling her experience into something constructive. What started as volunteer work had evolved into a comprehensive proposal for a new type of shelter, one that offered not just safety but legal advocacy, career counseling, and trauma recovery services. "Julian thinks we have a good chance with the Westbrook Foundation," Olivia said, checking her watch. "Their focus on community development aligns perfectly with our mission." Donna smiled knowingly. "Julian thinks the world of you, you know." Olivia felt warmth rise to her cheeks. Relationship with Julian had evolved gradually from protector and protected two colleagues, then friends, and now something neither had yet defined. They'd been careful, both recognizing her need to rediscover herself before beginning anything new. "He's been incredible through everything," Olivia admitted. "I wouldn't be here without him." And yet Donna noted, "You're standing on your own 2 feet now. That's all you." They walked together toward downtown, where Julian would meet them before the foundation meeting. The divorce proceedings had revealed Thomas's financial abuses as well. He'd hidden assets, controlled every aspect of their finances, and left Olivia without access to what was legally hers. Julian's team had methodically unraveled the complex web, ensuring she received fair settlement that now funded her modest apartment and part-time graduate studies in social work. "There he is." Donna pointed toward Julian's tall figure waiting outside the coffee shop. When he spotted them, his face lit with a smile that still made Olivia's heart skip. "Ready for the big pitch?" he asked, kissing Olivia's cheek in greeting. "As ready as I'll ever be," she replied. "Did you bring the presentation materials?" Julian patted his briefcase. "Everything's here. Though I doubt you'll need the notes, you know this proposal inside out. I'll head to the office and hold." "Down the fort," Donna said. "Good luck, though. You won't need it." As Donna departed, Julian took Olivia's hand. "Before we go in, there's something I wanted to discuss." Olivia recognized his lawyer face, serious but measured. "Is everything okay? Did Thomas's appeal?" "No, nothing like that," Julian assured her. "His appeal was denied last week. Actually, I received a job offer from Brennan and Associates in Chicago." Olivia's heart sank. "Oh, that's a prestigious firm." "Very," Julian nodded. "The compensation package is extraordinary." "When would you leave?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Depends," he said, "on what you think about Chicago." Olivia blinked. "What I think?" Julian's expression softened. "Olivia, I turned down the offer. My life is here. But it made me realize I should finally say what I've been feeling for months." He took both her hands in his. "I love you. Not as someone to protect or help, but as the incredible, resilient woman you are." Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. "Julian, you don't need to say anything," he continued. "I know you're still healing, still finding your path. I just wanted you to know that whenever, if ever, you're ready, I'm here." Olivia looked at this man who had seen her at her worst and most vulnerable, who had never once used that vulnerability against her, who had given her space to grow without expectation. "Of anything in return, I love you too," she said simply. "I have for a while now. But I needed to be sure I wasn't just grateful or dependent." "And now?" Julian asked, hope evident in his eyes. "Now I know the difference," she smiled. "I'm choosing you, not needing you. There's a world of difference." Julian's smile was radiant. "Perfect timing, then. For what?" "For celebrating after you wow the Westbrook Foundation," he said. "Dinner tonight? Just the two of us?" "I'd like that," Olivia nodded, feeling a flutter of anticipation. As they walked toward the foundation offices, Olivia reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The midnight escape that had seemed like an ending had actually been a beginning. The fear that had driven her forward had transformed into purpose. The woman who had slipped away in darkness now walked proudly in daylight. Thomas still cast a shadow occasionally. The divorce proceedings continued, and healing wasn't linear. But each day brought new strength, new joy, new possibilities. "What are you thinking about?" Julian asked, as they reached the foundation building. Olivia squeezed his hand. "The future," For the first time in years, I'm actually excited to see what comes next. Julian smiled. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. As they entered the building, Olivia straightened her shoulders. Once she had run from cruelty into the unknown. Now she walked confidently toward a future of her own making, one where safety wasn't just the absence of danger, but the presence of love, purpose, and the freedom to become her fullest self. Asterisk.